Welcome to this tutorial on the casualty system for 1.28 of the JMP mod. It's been pretty common for people to see 40 to 50% total casualties at Shiloh and Gaines's Mill and over 30% at other major battles. Minor battles like Logan's Crossroads and Rendezvous are no longer a leisurely stroll. Many players in previous versions of the mod had gotten so used to min-maxing every battle and having 10-to-1 kill ratios or more. And since they're not seeing those types of outcomes in this version, players are getting frustrated or get into a panic that they're going to lose their campaign. Let's talk about those high kill ratios for just a moment. High kill ratios are usually a result of full clearing a battle and capturing and killing the stragglers at the end when you have the upper hand and the AI has all but given up. Like an athlete padding his stats during garbage time, full clears usually translate into higher kill ratios. Since mission timers have been truncated everywhere, we are not seeing those type of full clears now. Playing the Union, in the last version, the only battle that you really had to work at clearing all the way up to Shiloh was river crossing. Everything else was pretty much a slam dunk. Now you'll likely clear Distress Call and Logan's Crossroads, but Philippi, First Bull Run, and river crossing are a crapshoot depending on what the AI decides to do. So try not to get frustrated and just keep making progress towards the final goal. Also, Major General difficulty is likely as difficult as Legendary is in the base game now. As Panda Kraut recently pointed out, he can't make a difficulty button that comes between Brigadier General and Major General difficulties in the campaign setup. And that's why the AI config file exists. So you can make something that bridges the gap between Brigadier General and Major General difficulties. When you go into the mod files in the rebalanced folder, the AI config file will be right there at the top. Open it in Notepad or something similar. Scroll down to the AI scaling size multiplier and AI scaling experience multiplier and set them to something less than 1. Panda Kraut recommends 0.85, and that will make the AI unit sizes and experience about 85% of the default. One last comment on difficulty levels. The descriptions that you see in the campaign setup are oversimplified explanations. There's more to it than just the rewards, the enemy strength, and the reputation effects. You can increase the AI scaling multipliers to make a level more difficult, but that won't emulate the next level no matter how high you set it. If you want to learn to play at the next level up, you're better off just downscaling the AI scaling multipliers as we just discussed. As you get better at the level, you can bump the scaling back up to 1 or even higher if you eventually need a bigger challenge. Now let's take a look at casualties as they relate to what you may see at Shiloh by comparing 3 of my previous Shiloh battles. The 2 from my version 127 campaign and the newest one from this version of the mod. If you watched my Mobile Forces Shiloh battle in version 127, the size of that battle was 53,599 and 113 guns for the Union, and 46,891 soldiers and 138 guns for the Confederacy. My total casualties were 7,405, of which 6,379 were to my units. Those troops are permanently gone. Can't get them back. So my 2 corps had 42 units, which was a total of 27,536 at the start, so I lost 23.2% of that army. Next, if you watched my You Shall Not Pass Shiloh battle in version 127, that was 33,498 soldiers and 91 guns for the Union, and 47,371 and 152 guns for the Confederacy. This was a day 1 victory, and since Nelson's division is the only one of Buell's forces to get on the field, then my total Union forces were much smaller. My total casualties there were 6,155, of which 6,134 were to my units. I didn't have Nelson's group do too much. These troops are permanently gone. So my 2 corps had 36 units for a total of 29,840 at the start. So I lost 20.5% of my army. Seems funny that I would lose less of my army by holding both flanks and not falling back to Pittsburgh Landing, but that's how it happened to work out. Now let's talk about my current Shiloh battle that I just posted recently. The Union had 40,636 soldiers and 121 guns, and the Confederacy had 35,984 and 126 guns. The total non-adjusted casualties were 10,855, of which 6,578 were to my units. Now let's apply the new casualty system adjustments that are in version 1.28. Killed, 1,575 of my troops were killed. There's no adjustment there. They're just gone. There's no zombie army in this game. Your number of killed troops will be 15 to 30% of all your casualties. For me, that turned out to be 23.9% of my casualties in this battle. Missing. I had 778 of my troops went missing after the battle. Now up to 40% of your missing soldiers can return to their unit after a battle depending on army organization and unit command. I have 5 in AO, so that gives me 10% return from AO. I also have an average of 50 in command per unit. Now the game is going to apply the math for unit command in every individual unit. But to make the math easy here, I'm just going to assume that all 33 of my units had 50 in command. That gives me an additional 10% return from command. So I have a total of 20% of my missing men return to their units, which is 156 of them. The other 622 missing are presumed dead and are gone. Your missing will be 5 to 15% of your casualties. For me, it turned out to be 11.8% in this battle. Moving on to the wounded. So I know that 4,223 were wounded. 20 to 30% of your casualties will be badly wounded, and 25 to 35% of your casualties will be the normal wounded. If we add those two ranges together, then 45 to 65% of your total casualties for a battle will be wounded. I am at 64.2% of this battle, so right at the top of the scale. And that may sound like a bad thing, but given that the alternatives are either killed, missing, or captured, the math is actually going to work out in my favor by having a higher wounded number. We're not given the exact numbers of badly wounded versus wounded, but I can use some averages to get a pretty decent idea. Since the badly wounded rate is 20 to 30%, then the average of that would be 25%. And since the wounded range is 25 to 35%, the average of that is going to be 30. Now, there's half a dozen different ways you could do the math to figure things out here, but one way to say it is just that for every 25 badly wounded soldiers, I'm going to have 30 wounded soldiers. And if we run the numbers, that would put me at around 2,303 wounded and 1,920 badly wounded, and that adds up to the total of 4,223 that are listed on the battle report for player casualties. Now, after a grand battle, 25% of your badly wounded, plus whatever your medicine percentage modifier is, will move from the badly wounded to wounded pool. I don't have anything in medicine yet, so I just get the 25%. So 25% of 1920 is going to be 480 soldiers that move into the wounded pool. That makes the total wounded up to 2,783 now. The other 75% of my badly wounded forces die of their wounds and are permanently gone. The nice thing about the wounded pool is that none of them will die of their wounds. After every battle, including this one, 35% of your wounded, plus your medicine percentage, will move into the vet pool ready for redeployment. So in this case, I have 2,783 multiplied by 35%, since I have no medicine. That gives me 974. After each battle, you will keep getting 35% plus your medicine percentage. And of course, those numbers are going to fluctuate depending on how many casualties you had in that battle and how many were in the pool from leftover from before. So back to the comparison. If this were version 1.27, I would have lost 6,578 men, and that would have been 38.4% of my army. My actual losses are 1,575 killed, 622 missing and presumed dead, and 1,440 badly wounded that died of their wounds. That is a permanent loss of 3,637, which is 21.2% of my army. as opposed to 38.4% if this were the previous version of the mod. My retained casualties are 156 that returned immediately to their unit, and 1,379 in the wounded pool, and 974 that are now in my vet pool ready to be redeployed. Keep in mind that the number of casualties retained can be nearly double by maxing medicine, army organization, and unit command. Here I have nothing in medicine, so mine's pretty much right around the 25-35% minimum. I hope this helps you see your casualties in a different light in this version of the mod, because you're not actually losing as many as it may seem on the surface when that battle first ends. Thank you for watching, and I'll be going to Seven Pines next.